Reading from the book of Judges. Israel oppressed by the Midianites. The call of Gideon. The Israelites did what is evil in Yahweh's eyes, and for 7 years Yahweh handed them over to Midian. And Midian bore down heavily on Israel. To escape from the Midianites, the Israelites used the mountain clefts and the caves and shelters. Whenever Israel sowed seed, the Midianites would march up with Amalek and the sons of East. They would march on Israel. They would pitch camp on their territory and destroy the produce of the country as far as Gaza. They left Israel, nothing to live on, not a sheep or an ox or a donkey, for they came up as thick as locusts, with their cattle and their tents. They and their camels came innumerable. They invaded the country to pillage it. Thus Midian brought Israel to great distress, and the Israelites cried to Yahweh.
A message from a prophet. When the Israelites cried to Yahweh because of Midian, Yahweh sent a prophet to the Israelites. He said to them, "This is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says. It was I who brought you out of Egypt and led you out of the place of slave labor. I rescued you from the power of the Egyptians and from the power of all who oppress you. I drove them out before you and gave their country to you, and I said to you, I am Yahweh your God. You are not to fear the gods of the Amorites in whose country you are now living, but you have not listened to my voice." The angel of Yahweh appears to Gideon.
The angel of Yahweh came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash of Abiezer. Gideon, his son, was threshing wheat inside the winepress to keep it hidden from Midian. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him and said, "Yahweh is with you, valiant warrior." Gideon replied, "Excuse me, my lord, but if Yahweh is with us, why is all this happening to us? And where are all his miracles which our ancestors used to tell us about, when they said, 'Did not Yahweh bring us out of Egypt?' But now Yahweh has deserted us. He has abandoned us to Midian." At this Yahweh turned to him and said, "Go in this strength of yours, and you will rescue Israel from the power of Midian. Am I sending you myself?" Of Gideon replied, "Forgive me, my lord, but how can I deliver Israel? My clan is the weakest of the Manasseh family. I am the least important of my father's family." Yahweh replied, "I shall be with you. You will crush Midian as though it were one man." Gideon said, "If I have found favor in your sight, give me a sign that you are speaking to me. Please do not go away from here until I come back to you, bringing you my offering and laying it before you." And he replied, "I shall stay until you come back." Gideon went away. He prepared a young goat, and from ephah of flour he made unleavened cakes. He put the meat into a basket and the broth into a pot. They brought it all to him under the terebinth. As he approached, the angel of Yahweh said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened cakes, put them on this rock and pour the broth over them." Gideon did so. The angel of Yahweh then stretched out the tip of the staff which he was carrying and touched the meat and unleavened cakes. Fire sprang from the rock and consumed the meat and unleavened cakes, and the angel of Yahweh vanished before his eyes. Gideon then knew that this was the angel of Yahweh, and he said, "Alas, my lord Yahweh, now I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face." Yahweh answered, "Peace be with you. Have no fear. You will not die." Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and called it Yahweh, Peace. This altar stands in our own day at Ophrah of Abiezer. Gideon against Baal.
Now that night Yahweh said to Gideon, "Take your father's bull, the 7-year-old bull, and pull down the altar to Baal belonging to your father, and cut down the sacred pole beside it. Then on top of the strong point build a proper altar to Yahweh your God. Then take the bull and turn it and burn it as a burnt offering on the wood of the sacred pole, which you have cut down." Gideon then took 10 of his servants and did as Yahweh has ordered. But, being too frightened of his family and of the townspeople to do it in daylight, he did it at night. Next morning, when the townspeople got up, they found that the altar to Baal had been destroyed, sacred bull shanking beside it had been cut down, and the bull had been sacrificed as a burnt offering on the newly built altar. Who has done this? They asked one another. They served make inquiries and declared, Gideon, son of Joash, has done it. The townspeople then said to Joash, Bring out your son. He must die for having destroyed Baal's altar and cut down the sacred pole which stood beside it. To the people all crowding round him, Joash replied, It is your job to plead for Baal, is it? Your job to champion his cause? Anyone who pleads for Baal must be put to death before dawn. If he is a god, let him plead for himself. Now that Gideon has destroyed his altar, that day Gideon was given the name Jerubbaal, because they said, Baal must plead against him, because he has destroyed his altar. The call to arms.
All Midian and Amalek and the sons of East joined forces, and having crossed the Jordan, pitched camp on the plain of Jezreel. And the spring of Yahweh clotted Gideon around. He sounded the horn, and the bezer rallied behind him. He sent messengers throughout Manasseh, and Manasseh too rallied behind him. He sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they marched out to meet him. The sign of the fleece. Gideon said to God, If it is really you delivering Israel by means of me, as you have said, look, I am going to put a wooden fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground stays dry, then I shall know that you will deliver Israel by means of me, as you have said. And so it happened. Early morning, Gideon got up, squeezed the fleece, and wrung enough dew out of the fleece to fill a cup. Gideon then said to the Lord, Do not be angry with me if I speak just once more. Allow me to make the fleece test just once more. Let the fleece alone be dry, and there will be dew all over the ground. And God did so that night. The fleece alone stayed dry, and there was dew all over the ground. Gideon's campaign to the west of the Jordan. Yahweh reduces the number of Gideon's army.
Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, got up very early, as did all the people who were with him. He pitched camp at En-Harod. The camp of Midian was north of his, under the hill of Moreh in the valley. Yahweh then said to Gideon, There are too many people with you for me to put Midian into their power. Israel might claim the credit for themselves at my expense. They might say, My own hand has rescued me. So now, make the proclamation to the people. Anyone trembling with fear is to go back and watch from Mount Gilboa. 20,000 of the people went back, and 10,000 remained. Yahweh said to Gideon, There are still too many people. Take them down to the waterside, and I shall sort them out for you there. If I say of someone, he is to go with you, then that man is to go with you. If I say of anyone, he is not to go with you, that man is not to go with you. So Gideon took the people down to the waterside, and Yahweh said to him, All those who lap the water with their tongues, as a dog laps, put these on one side. All those who kneel down to drink, put these on the other side. The number of people, those who lapped with their hands to their mouth, was 300. All the rest of the people had knelt to drink. Yahweh then said to Gideon, With these 300 who lapped the water, I shall rescue you, and put Midian into power. Then the people as a whole dispersed to their homes. So they took the people's provisions and their horns, and then Gideon sent all the Israelites back to their tents, keeping only 300. The camp of Midian was below his in the valley. an omen of victory. Now it happened that same night that Yahweh said to him, "Get up and go down to the camp. I am putting it into your power. If, however, you are nervous about going, go down with your servant Purah. Listen to what they are saying, and that will encourage you to go down to the camp." So with his servant Purah, he went down to the edge of the outpost of the camp. Midian, Amalek, and all the sons of the east were deployed in the valley as thick as locusts. Their camels were as innumerable as sands on the seashore. Gideon got there just as man was telling his comrade a dream. He was saying, "This was a dream I had, a cake made of barley. Bread came rolling into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent, struck against it, and turned it upside down." His comrade replied, "This can only be the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has put Midian and the whole camp into his power." Once Gideon heard the dream, thus told and interpreted, he bowed in reverence. He then went back to the camp of Israel and said, "On your feet, for Yahweh has put the camp of Midian into your power." The surprise attack.
Gideon then divided his 300 men into 3 groups. 2 each. He gave a horn and an empty pitcher, with a horn inside each pitcher. He said to them, "Watch me and do as I do. When I heard the edge of the camp, whatever I do, you must do also. I shall blow my horn, and so will all those who are with me. You too will then blow your horn with me. You too will then blow your horn all around the camp and shout, 'For Yahweh and for Gideon.'" Gideon and his 100 companions reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when the new sentries had just been posted. They blew their horns and smashed the pitchers in their heads. The 3 groups blew their horns and smashed their pitchers. With their left hands they grasped the torches. With their right hands the horns for blowing them. They shouted, "The sword of Yahweh and for Gideon." And they stood still, spaced out round the camp. The whole camp was thrown into confusion, and the Midianites fled, shouting. While the 300 blew their horn, Yahweh made each man turn his sword against his comrade throughout the entire camp. They all fled as far as Bet Ahisha, in the direction of Zeratan, as far as the bank of Abel Mohalek, opposite Tabat.